Welcome to In Her Voice, a podcast created for women who listen to and live by their deepest wisdom, their inner voice. This was made for you, the woman who feels pulled to more, to lead, to create, to dream, and to be a world changer. My name is Kelly Covert, and I am an inner voice coach. Join me here each week as we explore what it means to reach for your inspired potential, all while honoring your worthiness each and every day. Hey there, this is Kelly, and you are listening to In Her Voice. Thanks for being here. And I want to wish you Happy New Year, Happy 2022. I hope that 2022 brings us peace and a sense of calm and maybe even a touch of boring. Maybe not personally boring, but universally boring. Wouldn't that be great? I just got back from a vacation with my best friend, just the two of us for a week at the beach. And it was just what I needed. And I'm excited to be here with you, celebrating a new year with renewed excitement about what I have in store for you here on In Her Voice. I have a bank of interviews that I've been doing that are just amazing. I have more planned. And as always, I want to know what you like too. Let me know if there's someone you would like for me to interview. Shoot me a message. You can always connect with me on Instagram, or you can shoot me an email at kelly@kellycovert.com, because this is for you. I create this for you. When I sit here in my studio by myself, I'm thinking about you. I'm talking to you. And so I would love to know what you would like and what you want more of and what topics you would like for me to dig into. So reach out, let me know, and I will put something together just for you. Today I have Tammy Mastroberte on the podcast, and she is lovely. We're talking about everyday magical moments. And I thought that this was the perfect interview to kick off the new year with, because it's magical, yet it's deliberate and simple. It's not magical in a big way. It's magical in a small way that we can really live into each and every day. And I just loved this interview so much. And she shares a little sort of a practice or a prayer that you can do at the end of the episode. And I will share in the outro my results with you. Let me tell you a little bit about Tammy. Tammy Mastroberte is the #1 Amazon best-selling author of the award-winning book, The Universe is Talking to You. Tap into signs and synchronicity to reveal magical moments every day. As a spiritual teacher, she focuses on helping people get unstuck in every area of their lives using simple spiritual practices and tools so they can harness the energy of the universe and create a life they love. She regularly hosts online masterclasses, releases weekly YouTube videos teaching a range of body, mind, spirit topics, including taming the chaos and how to communicate with and get help from the universe, and also hosts weekly Spirit Boost, where she goes live every Thursday on Facebook and Instagram. Tammy was a featured expert in the films Dream Big and The Truth About Prosperity, has been featured in Authority Magazine, Parade.com, Aspire Magazine, See Beyond Magazine, and Thrive Global, and has been a guest on several radio shows including Unity Radio, iHeartRadio, Om Times Radio, and more. For more information, you can visit her website at www.tammymastroberte.com. And of course, I'll include that in the show notes so you can click right through. So let's get right to Everyday Magical Moments with Tammy Mastroberte. Tammy Mastroberte, welcome to Inner Voice. I'm so glad to have you here today.
I am so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And we're talking about such a fun topic today. I really love this. We're talking about everyday magical moments. And you know, when you reached out and we started talking about having you on the podcast, I saw that title immediately and latched onto it because I thought, who doesn't need everyday magical moments, right?
Yes. Oh, 100%. Yes.
So why don't you just start with the simple answer to the question of what is an everyday magical moment for you?
For me, an everyday magical moment is something that brings me joy and something that reassures me or makes me feel that I am not alone, that I am being guided, that everything is happening for a reason, and that I can just trust that the universe, my angels, my guides, my loved ones on the other side, that they are around me and that I'm not in this life alone and that there's meaning behind things.
Mm-hmm. Exactly right. And so you teach people how to look for what you call synchronicity and signs from the universe. So we can all feel that. So we can all feel like the universe has our back, and that we are not just out here floating along without purpose or reason, right? So what do you mean by synchronicity? Because I want to make sure that we're all using the same vocabulary for this conversation.
Yes.
And I think that's an important place to start.
100%. So yeah, because I think most people understand sign, right? But synchronicity to me, and really if you literally look up the definition of synchronicity, it's the occurrence of two or more events, circumstances, signs that have some type of correlation or meaningful connection. So Carl Jung years ago is the first person, he was a Swiss psychiatrist, and he first coined the term synchronicity. And he used to say it's like a meaningful coincidence where we say, oh, you know, what a coincidence that this happened more than once, or what a coincidence that I was just looking for that and the answer popped up, or, you know, those types of things. So it's really two or more things. A sign is more of a singular, oh, wow, this cool thing happened, or, I know that's my loved one because that's, you know, their name, or that reminds me of them. To me, synchronicity is when you have those two or more events. And the interesting thing that I have found about synchronicity is you can trace synchronicity back, not just like, oh, today two things had a meaningful coincidence, or in the past month. You can go back years and find connections from one event, one circumstance, one meeting of a person, one firing from a job, and trace it to where you are now. And to me, that's the real power of it, of sort of diving into that and realizing sort of how it works.
That is so true. And, you know, I think sometimes it's easy to look at those things. And I mean like the long-term things. Like I think all the time about when I was in my second year of grad school, I applied for this flute program. I'm a flutist. And it was a flute program with this very famous flute teacher in England. And I got accepted, but I didn't get enough money to pay for it. And so I ended up not going. And because I ended up not going, I moved to Syracuse, where I now live, and I met my husband.
Yes. Yes.
And, you know, like I think about that all of the time because, you know, I believe that, like, I believe in not having regrets, you know, but sometimes I think, oh, I wonder what would have happened if I had gone and done that. But you know what definitely would not have happened? I would not have the family that I have today.
Exactly. That's the perfect example.
Right? It's so interesting to me. And I think some people would say, I'm going to play a skeptic right now. I think some people would say, but that's just how life works. Like, it's not magic. That is not synchronicity or whatever. It's just like, this is just how life works. What would you say to a skeptic like that?
I would say that's perfectly fine if that's if that's how they want to view it. However, I would challenge them to really look at all the different events in their life, because it's not just a one-off occurrence. It's not just a one story. If you go back, and I teach people to do this, and in the book The Universe is Talking to You, there's actually a couple of exercises where I challenge people to pick, go back years in your life and pick the worst events that happened to you, the best events that happened to you, and then start questioning and asking yourself, what came from this? Where did this take me? What would not have happened had this not occurred? And when you start seeing, oh my gosh, there's more than just this one circumstance. There's this person who passed away. I mean, for me, my mother's death, which was sudden from a brain aneurysm when I was only 22, skyrocketed me on the path that I'm on today, right? So horrible situation brought me to where I was meant to go. So when people start finding these multiple occurrences in their life, you can say that's the way life is. You can say it's a higher power. You can say we're being guided. You can say, oh, there's just magical things happening and that's cool. But it's there. And and when you start looking for it, you just cannot deny it. And so for me, I call it a higher power. I call it my angels, my guides, my loved ones who are continually working for me, trying to keep me on the path to my highest good, to what I'm meant to do. So, you can call it whatever you want, but I guarantee you there's not one person that can't go back when they start looking and find these occurrences.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you that it's there whether or not you acknowledge it.
Yes.
You don't have to believe in it. That doesn't mean that it's not there. And,
correct.
You said lots of words just then about how people think of this, like the universe, your guides, your angels. And for me, it's my inner voice, which I believe is divine.
Yes.
It's mine, but also not mine.
Yes.
And I believe that we all have it. And it's so beautiful that we can call it so many different things. Some people call it God. Some people call it religion, and it doesn't matter what you call it. And which
Correct.
I feel like is ironic, since I started out this whole conversation asking you to help us get clear on vocabulary. Right. And now we're saying, it's all good. But I just love this idea that we're being held.
Mm-hmm.
And as a strong-willed woman who is independent and powerful, and I stand in my strength, sometimes I don't want to be held. Sometimes I rebel against the idea that someone is guiding me all the time. Do you know what I mean? And so
yes.
How do we hold both of those things at the same time?
Well, I think the way that I view it, when you were talking about your inner voice, the way that I view it is that every single one of us has a soul or a spirit or an essence, whatever you want to call it, living inside of this physical body in this physical world. And so to me, when we're talking about that inner voice, that inner guidance system, to me, that is the soul. That is who you truly are. At the level of the soul knows everything, right? The soul knows why you're here. The soul knows why you do things. The soul knows where you're going. The soul knows it all. And so sometimes it is actually you. It is actually your higher self that is nudging you and that is guiding you. Also, on the other side of that, I believe that a higher power, again, I talk about your angels, even your loved ones who have passed on, they can tap into that voice, right? They can tap into that inner guidance, that inner voice or that soul, and utilize it. And sometimes we don't even realize it's not us. We just think, oh my God, I just had the most amazing idea, right? And we just think we're the coolest thing in the world. And really, somebody sort of tapped into that. So I kind of feel like it is you. It is always you, because it's your soul that's listening and that's speaking. I just think that sometimes it gets tapped into by a higher power, and it's our choice whether or not we're going to listen to it or not. But I feel like it's always you.
And that's it, right? You hit the nail on the head, that it ultimately is our choice. It's our choice if we listen to that. It's our choice if we pay attention to the synchronicities and the signs. We get to choose. what meaning we're gonna make of that, and that puts the power back into our hands. Like, we do have free will. It's not like someone's just guiding us around blindly.
Right.
And I think it's important to make that distinction, though, because I do believe that we create the lives that we live with our choices each and every day. And, I'm curious for you. You mentioned the passing of your mom suddenly when you were young really changed the trajectory of your life. And I'm wondering, would you have considered yourself to be spiritual or like connected to the universe or your inner voice before that happened?
No, not the way I am now. I was, I think, like a lot of people, I was brought up in a religion. So I was brought up Catholic, went to Catholic school from literally through 8th grade. So I didn't even enter like the regular world where you didn't have to wear uniforms to school until I was a freshman in high school. So talk about a culture shock. But
I had a really similar experience. I went to a private Christian school through 6th grade.
Oh, okay.
And so 7th grade was my first time like never wearing uniform. And it is.
You're like,
weird.
What a strange world I'm living in.
It's hard to navigate.
Yes, it is. It was crazy. It was really so strange to me. I'll never forget it. But I have to say I did grow up with that faith-based living. Like, I did believe that I was guided. I did believe my grandmother passed when I was only 5 years old, and I always had a very strong connection, and I always believed she was around me, and I always believed I could talk to her. Like, I did have that base. But at the time my mother died when I was 22, I had sort of disconnected from it. I was going through different things at the time. I talk about in the universe is talking to you. I actually was sort of just recovering from an eating disorder at the time. I was going through a lot of turmoil. Sort of, I had graduated college, and it's like that phase of like, who am I? What am I doing here? What do I really want to do? It sort of felt very out of control. So for me, controlling food helped me control my life at the time, and so. It was just it was a place where I was probably headed down a bad road, and my mother's death reignited that for me, because when she died, and talk about synchronicity, by the way, when she died, about 6 months before she passed away. And again, she wasn't sick. This was a sudden thing. But 6 months before she passed away, a friend of my sister's brought a book into the house by this medium named George Anderson. It was called Lessons from the Light, and it was a book that he wrote. He had books written about him, but this was a book he wrote. And we had a whole discussion about mediumship, and at the time, I mean, we're going back to 1999, right? So there was no like mediums on TV. I thought this guy was like this special person who could communicate with those who had passed on and what have you. And so basically we had this whole discussion. So my mother had known about this guy before she passed away. And after she died, he started showing up everywhere. And I mean everywhere. Like, my sister would hear him on the radio and call me and go, we should really make an appointment with this guy. And then all of a sudden, Primetime TV did a special on him. Then Lifetime TV did a special. And we just kept seeing him everywhere, over and over. And finally, my sister said to me, Tammy, Mommy knew about him before she left. And we had no closure. There was no goodbye. We need to make an appointment with this guy. So eventually we did make an appointment with him. And we drove out to Long Island. I, being a skeptical Virgo that I am, basically lied about all of our information so that he couldn't research anything. I literally put, I put a friend's name, another friend's phone number. Like, it was ridiculous. Like, I mixed up all information, and everything was done by mail, because this was, again, before PayPal and all that stuff. And so we went, and that 1 hour meeting that I still have the recording of, that I actually, in the book, I share like snippets of it because it was so powerful. I left that hour meeting and my life had changed because I thought, wait a second, like there was no doubt this guy, the things he said that I had never even voiced out loud, like the things he came up with that even the greatest internet today couldn't find this information. I literally thought, okay, wait a second, there's so much more to this world than I ever could have thought. I need to know more.
Yes.
And that's what shot me out.
Well, and I love this, and it makes me excited about my next question. And that is, how can we really start to actively pay attention and listen and see these signs, the synchronicities, and also maybe know how to interpret them? I mean, that's a big question. I recognize that. But, right. I feel like that's what I hear you saying. I hear you saying that this is not just, your mom doesn't have to die. You don't have to hit rock bottom, that you can choose to see these things now, and they can help you, and they can support you, and they can change you in a good way. So how do we do that? So, I mean, there's a bunch of different ways to start opening yourself up. I'm going to give you the two most important. The first one is we have to, 100% have to start taming some of the chaos that is in our lives, that is distracting us, that is keeping us in the past and the future, and keeping us out of the present moment, where we are not noticing these subtle things that are coming in. So one of the easiest ways that I teach people to do it, because I know a lot of people maybe have tried meditating, they say they can't do it, they feel like sitting down for 20 minutes is too much, or however long they've tried to do it. I talk about mini meditations. So, and I like to spread them throughout the day, because then throughout the day, you're bringing yourself back, even if it's for 60 seconds. I say 60 seconds to 3 minutes.
But even easy. Very easy. That's what I'm all about. Like, I'm just like, man, we're busy. How can, and the thing is, everything that I teach, I've developed for myself, because I didn't want to sit for 20 minutes in the beginning. You know what I mean? I do now, but I still use mini meditations. I still will stop throughout the day, and it can be setting an alarm on your phone. There's an app called the mindfulness bell that you can set to go off at certain times of the day or once every hour, and just stopping what you're doing, closing your eyes for 60 seconds, and just repeating a mantra. It can be the word release, because you want to release stress. It could be all is well, I am here, I am safe. Whatever feels good to you, just sort of repeating it, or just following your breath for 60 seconds, bringing yourself back to center, and then going back to whatever it was that you were doing at the time. And not only does that bring you back to the present moment, slow everything down, tame that chaos so you can start noticing these things around you, but it also will tame your stress, tame your overwhelm, make you feel better. You'll start noticing so many other benefits from it. So that's the first thing, is just so many times we're not in the present moment. We're not paying attention. Mm-hmm. The second quick thing I would say is realizing different ways that they communicate. And our loved ones always communicate with us through ways of usually something that's specific to them. So this actually goes more toward your question of recognizing. So let me go back to the other piece. The second piece I would say that I find most people do is they get a sign or a coincidence, and they'll say, oh my gosh, this is the weirdest thing happened to me today. Or, you're not going to believe this. This was like perfect timing. This was just what I needed. Or, this happened and I can't believe this. And this is so strange. Let me tell you what happened. And then they say, oh, it was just a coincidence. Oh, it was just this. Oh, I don't know if that was really my loved one. And you discount it, right? You think like, I don't know if that's really it. So the second step, and I actually have a whole 5-step process, but the second step in that process is actually saying yes when you get something and you think this might have been from my loved one, or, oh, I'm feeling just so down today and you're walking through a park and all of a sudden you look down and somebody wrote with chalk on the ground, "You are loved," and you get chills. Taking that and saying, oh my gosh, I'm not going to just say this was a coincidence. I'm going to say yes. Because the more you say yes, the more things open up to you. The more all of the sudden your brain goes, wait a second, there's things going on. I need to start paying attention. And now you're actually starting to see more and more things. There's so many signs that people get that they discount or they ignore or they say are not, oh, I'm just reading into that. Maybe that's not it. Start changing your mind around that.
Mm-hmm. The word that comes to mind when you're talking about that second thing, when you said don't discount it, is the word accept. Like, yes. The universe is trying to give you this thing, and giving is a two-way street. In order to give, you must also receive, right? And then you complete the circle in that way. And you're so right that so often we experience the sign and then we don't receive it.
Yes, exactly. And then you're just you're just closing the door to more. Not just saying to the universe like nah, or your loved one who's trying to get through, right? But also sort of telling your own conscious mind like no. And so then the conscious mind or the subconscious mind is not going to let more through when you're shutting that door.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. It takes practice. It's a habit.
Yes. Mm-hmm. But what I find actually is once people start, it's sort of like once people notice one thing and they go, oh, I get this might be what she's talking about. It literally it opens the floodgates and it becomes so much easier once you can sort of get over that hurdle. And I actually have, an exercise for people where we don't have to go into it here depending on how you feel, but it's where I have them actually assign a sign to a loved one, to your guide team, to whomever, and then ask for it to come. And then I cannot tell you how many people have had breakthroughs from this by just picking a sign, giving it to the person, they want to communicate with, or who, even if it's their higher self or their collective team or the universe in itself. Once they get it, they're like, whoa, Tammy's not joking. Like, this is real. Mm-hmm. And it opens the floodgates to everything.
Well, we have time. Would you mind sharing that exercise with us?
Yes, 100%. Okay.
Great.
So this is like my favorite thing. So anybody can do this. So basically what I say is pick one person or the collective that you would like to hear from. So let's say your mother's passed and you'd like a sign from your mother. Or let's say that you are on a healing journey and you're working with Archangel Raphael and you want to hear from Archangel Raphael. Let's just say you want to say, listen, whoever's out there, I know I have people that are watching over me. So I'm just going to assign a sign to my collective team to let me know that you're around, whoever you are, right? It can be as easy as that. You pick who you'd like to hear from. And then you pick what sign would you like to give them. And it can be anything. And I tell people, don't second guess this, because I have so many people who they'll think of one sign and then they'll go, no, that's dumb. And then they'll think of a second sign and then the first sign winds up coming. Like, don't second guess it. Just say, I'm just going to, even if you think it's complicated. Like, I had one woman, I'll never forget. She's like, I assigned the song from the movie Cats. She's like, and I figured I would never get that. And it actually came. So like, don't overthink it. It can be an animal. It can be a blue butterfly. It could be rose. It could be a rose, a particular type of flower. If you're assigning a sign to a loved one, you can say use your name or use your birth date. My mother likes to use her birth date of May 9th, so I'll see 0509 or 059 all the time. My phone actually, I'll never forget one time in my bedroom, I stepped on my cordless phone that was on the floor and I picked it up and my foot dialed 059. So it can come in a million different ways, but you can pick your birth date, you can pick a number sequence, whatever you want to do, but pick who you want to assign it to, pick what the actual sign is, and then all you're going to do is just basically say, I'm calling in all of my, calling in the universe, everyone who's guiding me and who's around me. Specifically, I would like to address, and then you say whoever it is, even if it's your collective. And then you say, listen, I'm hearing from this woman, Tammy, that you're sending me signs. and I want to believe it. And I promise that I'm going to be open to it moving forward, right? You have to set the intention, which is a huge thing, to say, I am intending to open myself up to these signs. Can you please send me and use the sign of whatever sign that may be? And then say, I promise to be open to receive it. Please help me to recognize it when it arrives. And thank you. I appreciate your time. If you can get this sign to me within the next 3 days, that would be great. And then I always say to people, if you don't get it in 3 days, don't stress about it. Just check back in and say, you probably sent that sign. I might have missed it. Can you send it again? Most people get it. Like, it's incredible. Like, I've had people get off of classes with me and then email me and go, oh my gosh, Tammy, I already got it. And then I've had some people, like, I just taught a class, like it was a 5-day spiritual reboot. And there was one person in the class who kept saying, like, I just haven't gotten my sign yet. I just haven't gotten my sign yet. And I'm like, go to bed tonight, ask for it again. And then she emailed me, like, over the weekend and was like, I got it. I can't believe I got it. So just give it time. And when you actually see the sign come through, I'm telling you, you're going to be like, this is incredible. And also know that once that sign has come through, whoever you assigned it to will use that sign over and over and over again to just get your attention, just to let you know, like, you're not alone, you're guided, I'm around, just trust, keep moving forward.
Mm-hmm. I love that. What came to mind is, it sounds like you're almost like saying a prayer to this person, right? But the way you said it was just like so matter of fact. I can imagine you sending an email to this.
Right. Exactly.
And you know why I bring that up? Because I think sometimes to do things that feel out of your comfort zone, like say a prayer to it, and like the person that came to my mind was my grandma, who passed when, I was still in my teens, and we were super close, and I miss her. In fact, I have a picture of her with my 3-year-old self on my desk that I just remember.
Yes.
And I think that for some people, it would feel really uncomfortable to like say this prayer out loud or say the prayer in their head even.
Yes.
And so if I can offer just an addendum to that practice and say, this is a great journaling exercise.
100%.
You can write this out. Like if you're a journaler, you can write this out. And I feel like everybody these days is excellent at emailing, so just like write an email out. Like type it out. It doesn't mean you have to send it anywhere or anything, but like sometimes the act of doing something that you're comfortable with when you're doing an uncomfortable thing makes it easier. It just sort of, fills that gap a little bit for you to be able to step over into a new way of believing. And so I would just offer that up to this exercise as well, because it was like a thought that came so clearly to me when you said that. So I thought, well, that's a sign. I need to say it.
Yes, no, 100%. Send the email to yourself if you want to hit the, actually hit send. And then just let it go and just trust that I'm just going to let it go and I'm going to see what happens. Mm-hmm. And you will be amazed at what comes through, I promise. And give it time and don't give up, because I've never ever heard from anybody that said to me, I did this exercise and it's been months and it hasn't worked.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm excited, and I hope that everyone who's listening will do the exercise. And I sort of wrote these down as you said, and I thought of the sign, and it was weird too. Like, it's not something that I would have normally thought of. For me, it was a balloon floating away in the sky. Like, why would I think of that? I have no idea. Mm-hmm. So I'm just going with that. I can't remember the last time I saw a balloon floating away in the sky. And I will report back. And I hope that everyone who's listening will report back too.
Yes. And I just want to say, when you said, the other thing is, because I'll have people say to me, does this count? So like when you're saying a balloon floating in the sky, I want you to be open to the fact that you may go on Facebook and see a picture of a balloon floating in the sky, right?
Or thank you for saying that.
Yes. Or you might watch a TV show with balloons floating in the sky. Like, it doesn't have to be literally in your backyard, a balloon floating in the sky, right? And I get that all the time. People will say, does this count or does that count? And I'm like, 100% they will use whatever they can use to get through to you. So be open to, and don't be rigid in, no, it has to be an actual balloon that I see with my eye floating in the sky, because if you're assigning it to your grandmother, she could use any means whatsoever to get through. So I definitely want to say that, because whoever's assigning the sign, if you assign butterflies and then you walk into a bathroom at a restaurant and there's butterfly wallpaper, like, please take that as butterflies, right? Don't think I have to actually see a butterfly on a flower. Yeah. Because because it can come in so many different ways.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, so we assign the sign, and then we see the sign, and we start seeing the signs everywhere. How do we know what it means?
Well, when you're assigning a sign in this way, I would say you're literally just asking them to communicate and let you know that they're around, that they're hearing you. Gotcha. If you, so for loved ones who have passed on, right? I always say usually the signs, like if you hear their name, if you see their birth date, like my mother, if you see something that reminds you of them, if you hear a song on the radio that reminds you of them, if you're, I had a friend who, her and her father loved Mickey Mouse. And after he died, she kept seeing Mickey and Minnie Mouse, like, posted on Facebook. She went into a CVS one time and she saw a Mickey Mouse dressed up for Easter. And then at the same time, she heard a song playing over the loudspeakers that reminded of her father. So those usually our loved ones are trying to get through, and they're trying to say, like, I'm around you, I'm here, I'm watching you, you're not alone, I haven't left you, type of a thing. Yeah. In terms of other signs, it's usually, like I said, the sign of, like, you're not feeling good, and then you see you are loved. That's a pretty much of an easy interpretation. Another way that signs will come through, and synchronicity, by the way, is through repetition. So paying attention to hearing the name of a book over and over from, like, totally different sources in like a couple weeks.
That happens to me all the time.
Yes. Or hearing the name of a doctor, or hearing people keep talking about drinking green juice, or people and you're like, why do I keep hearing about this? Like, all of the sudden, because the universe is trying to get you to investigate that, right? Mm-hmm. And so that sort of thing is usually, like, I always say the universe is not using Morse code. It's not using JavaScript for computers. Like, it literally is just trying to get through to you to say, like, go this way, read this book, do this thing. I'm around, you're okay, this is the house for you, whatever it might be. The universe is sort of just is using those things. Now, the only thing that I will say that I like to, I'll look up, right? And this has happened to me many, many times, is if you continue to see a random animal doing strange things over and over and over again, I tell people, go onto your computer and say, what is the metaphysical meaning of a grasshopper? What is the meaning? What is the symbolism behind, X, Y, and Z? And the same thing with numbers, because different numbers have different meanings and vibrations to them. So when you keep seeing the same number over and over again, and it's not your birth date, or it's not a number that has significance to you that reminds you of a loved one or something like that, Google what is the meaning of whatever number, because there's something called angel numbers, and the universe will try and communicate with you for different things like that. And I'll give you a really fast example of a fly that happened to me. I was literally sitting in a Starbucks. This was years ago, before I even wrote the book. And I think this story is in The Universe is Talking to You. But I was sitting in the Starbucks, and I was trying to get work done, and I was feeling bad because my husband happened to be off, and my stepson was home, and I left the house to try and get work done, and because we were living in a townhouse at the time, and I was feeling guilty, like I should be hanging out with them, but I had a deadline, I had things I had to do. And so I was in this Starbucks, and it was a huge Starbucks, and this one fly was literally hanging around me for like an hour. And I was like, you have an entire Starbucks. Like, what are you doing? Like, why are you buying me? And it would land on my computer, and then I would shoo it away. And then it would land on the table next to me by my drink, and I would shoo it away. And I'm like, what is, like, it got to the point where I was like, this fly's obsessed with me. Like, something, like, I'm not doing anything different than anybody else in this entire Starbucks. Like, dude, why are you by me? And so all of a sudden it hit me, and I thought, wait a minute, what if this fly, and again, when you're talking about animals or anything like that, if they're doing something out of the ordinary or you keep seeing it over and over again, it's something. So I Googled what is the metaphysical meaning behind a fly? And I looked it up, and it actually was talking about, like, being diligent, not feeling guilty for being selfish, for doing things, doing the things that you're working on, and you're on the right path, keep going, success is coming, like this whole thing. And I thought, oh my gosh, and here's the kicker of it. As soon as I got that message, that fly left and I never saw it again. And he hung around me for like at least an hour and a half. And then once I Googled that, he was gone.
That's fantastic. I love that story. Tammy, thank you for sharing that, because I think what I hear you saying is that magic can look ordinary.
Yes, 100%, 100%. And that's what I want to teach people is how can you find the magic, recognize it, because it's happening all around you. You're just not recognizing it. And once you start recognizing it, your entire world becomes magical. Everything changes. Yeah.
It's true. Well, Tammy, this has just been a delight. I'm so excited about our homework that you gave us. And I hope that everyone who's listening will do it and report back. You can let me know on Instagram or shoot me an email, and same thing for Tammy. So
yes.
How should my listeners connect with you if they want to do that?
So they can find me at my website's TammyMastroberte.com. So you can find me at the website. There's actually something you can opt into for my top 2 ways to tame the chaos, which we talked about, taming the chaos. You can also find me on Instagram and Facebook. I actually go live every Thursday at noon Eastern for something I call Weekly Spirit Boost, where I share maybe a story of a sign that happened to me, maybe something going on with my life or something specific that I think has meaning. Anything that sort of comes up for me that week, maybe comes up with a client or something like that, just to sort of help people, find some inspiration and feel good. So you can find me there as well. And then I also have a YouTube channel where I release at least weekly videos. My Weekly Spirit Boost is also on that YouTube channel under a playlist. And you can find all sorts of cool videos on there, including a sign that my mother sent me on my wedding day. I actually have video from my wedding, which was pretty incredible. So that's on my YouTube channel as well.
Awesome. Well, I don't want to let you leave without asking the one question that I ask all of my guests. And that is, today in your life, what is your inner voice saying to you?
Today, my inner voice is saying to find your joy. Find your joy. And that's something I think I've been hearing from it a lot lately, because joy is what gives us that boost. And I think so many of us don't dedicate time to just finding our joy in every day.
Yes, I am with you on that. And just hearing you say that makes me feel joy. So thank you.
Yes. Oh, wonderful.
Thank you so much for being here, for sharing your wisdom, and for giving us a really practical takeaway. I appreciate you, Tammy.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This has been so much fun.
All right, you guys. So good, so good. And I told you I would report back on the little exercise that we did. So I said the prayer like she said, and the sign I picked was a balloon floating away in the sky. And that was going to be a sign from my grandma who passed long ago. And it was not even 3 days after. And the funniest thing, I didn't see an actual balloon floating in the actual sky. I saw on my friend's Instagram a picture of all of these hot air balloons floating in the sky. And I thought, that's it. That's it. And, it's just it's exactly what she says. It's just a little bit of everyday magic. Just these things that we can instill in us. We can start looking for the magic of living on this earth. And, it might feel a little woo-woo to you, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that it's not real. And I encourage you just to try it. And if you want more of what Tammy was talking about, if you're really craving that right about this time of year, then I encourage you to go all the way to the way back of the archives and listen to my interview with Pamela Grout. We also talk about very similar things to this. And sometimes I like to listen to different people talk about the same things because you never know what's going to hit you. So that is kellycovert.com/40, episode 40 of In Her Voice, way long time ago, but it's still really good. And I'll put the link to that in the show notes, as with everything else that Tammy talked about. So you can go right to your show notes podcast app that you're listening to and click from there. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful year. I hope that you can remember each and every day that you matter, that magic lives inside of you, that you can listen to your inner voice and trust it deeply. Remember this, you are worthy.